Hello everyone and welcome back to A Mile in My Stilettos. Today I'm going to be telling you about how I met my husband, got engaged, and got married all in 9 months. You guys, I know it sounds fast, and that's because it was fast, but God really led us to each other. God is still in the business of leading people to their spouse if that's something you desire. So you guys, I feel like I entered into the dating world at a little bit of a disadvantage, and I say that because I was raised in a Christian home, and in my Christian home, dating was not allowed. I was not allowed to date until after I graduated from high school, and in a lot of Christian homes, that can be like a typical thing. And I feel like it put me at a disadvantage because then when I graduated from high school, I was so excited for guys to like me and me to be able to say, yes, I'll go out with you. Yes, you can take me on a date. Yes, let me take this call. Like, I couldn't even have guys calling my phone, texting my phone while I was in high school. That didn't mean I didn't sneak around and do it anyways, but it wasn't allowed. So when I was allowed to do it, I went a little bit overboard. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was excited about the opportunity. And not only that, but I fell into a lot of dumb stuff. Like, I dated guys that really were no good for me, and I didn't really know some of the tricks and stuff that they was trying to play. And that's mainly because I didn't really feel comfortable talking to my parents about the relationships that I had. And that's just because for so long I couldn't talk to them about the relationships that I had because I wasn't supposed to be in these relationships. So I entered into the dating world totally green at the age of 18. So, you know, again, I was dating, and then I went off to college and I dated around all of that, and then I ended up in, if this word was out then, I wish, because it would have perfectly described what I ended up in. We called it a situationship, and I would say an entanglement. I ended up in an entanglement with someone for several years, and I call it that because I don't think there was any point where he was totally committed to only dating me and I was totally committed to only dating him. It was an entanglement, and it lasted for, like I said, several years on and off. It was drama and all that, but I really, after that, I got to the point where I was just like, okay, you know what, like, I'm emotionally exhausted from like relationships. And I feel like a lot of women get to that place where they're just like, you know what, let me focus on me, let me just do me, because this is just, I'm exerting all this energy and it's just too much. And when I ended that relationship, that entanglement, it was so abrupt. Like, I was like, I'm leaving the state. And I didn't even tell him I was leaving. Like, I literally just left. And it was like, that was it. I was just done. And not even in an angry way, but just in I need to focus on me, get myself together. Like, I just needed me. I just needed me time. And so for several years, literally years, like, I wasn't really out dating. I wasn't in a relationship with anybody. I was traveling. I was doing me. And so this is where we get to the part where how I met my husband, how God led me to my husband. So I was living in Maryland because in all of my traveling and living and moving, I ended up living with some friends up in Maryland, a family that I very much love. And I was living up there, and it had been a couple months that I had been there, and all of a sudden I was going to Atlanta for a conference at a church, and I was like, oh, okay. So I went down to the conference, and while I was at this conference, I heard clear as day, like, God was like, you need to go back to school to get your master's. Now, I was like, okay, go back to school to get my master's. That's cool. Like, I'm open to that. And so he was like, you need to apply to Mercer. And I was like, okay, Mercer. Like, I literally had never even heard of Mercer. Like, I was just like scrolling through schools, and like I saw Mercer on the list, and it was like Mercer, and they had like a school of theology, and I was like, oh, I can study more about being a missionary because I love doing missions and stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, cool, Mercer it is. So I go and I call them the next day, and I'm like, hey, I wanted to call to find out about your school of theology and all of that. And they were like, oh, the deadline to apply was last week. And I was like, oh man, like, I feel like I'm supposed to go this semester. Like, okay. And they're like, yeah, well, let us check on some things and we'll give you a call back. So they literally called me back like a couple hours later, and they were like, if you can get all your application, all of your transcripts and everything sent in by the end of the day today, we'll still accept your application. And I was like, okay. So I get all my stuff together like as quick, fast as possible, and I give the stuff to them. Literally within a week, they accept me into the program. I went and did my tour, all of that. And so I let the family know that I was living with in Maryland. Hey, I'm moving to Atlanta. And they were like, what? And I was like, I'm moving to Atlanta. I feel like God wants me to move to Atlanta. Like, I'm finna go back to school. I'm gonna study for my master's. I'm going to Atlanta. And they were like, we don't want you to go, but okay. And I was like, okay. So I packed up all my little stuff, which, you know, it wasn't a lot of stuff. I traveled light because I was moving around a lot at that time. And I got in my car, and my brother, one of my brothers, he drove with me from Maryland to Atlanta to move all of my stuff. I found an apartment in like 2 days. I was like running around town and everything. And so I found an apartment and everything like that. And I moved in, and I was like, okay. So once I got to the official orientation for school, my future husband, little did I know, he was there. And I saw him at orientation, and I was like, wow, he's cute. And I was like, okay. And so, but I just, you know, I didn't say anything to him then. I just went to orientation, like, you know, whatever. And I was walking out, and after orientation, they had this like volleyball on the lawn thing that they wanted to do with all the students. I am not athletic. I did not plan on going, but my future husband walks up to me and he's like, hey, do you want to go play volleyball with everybody else? And knowing him now, like, he's so that person that just wants everybody to be together all the time. Like, he loves community and bringing people together and all that kind of stuff. So he saw I was leaving, so he came up and he was like, hey, are you gonna come play volleyball? And I was like, no, I wasn't planning to. He's like, you should come play. And I'm like, okay, I'll come and I'll play. So I go over to play volleyball, all of that. We end up having this whole conversation, and we end up at these ping pong tables. I went into detail about this part in another video, how I got my husband. So that's why I'm speeding over this part, but definitely check that video out if you want more details on all of that. But long story short, we ended up having this long, like 2-3 hour conversation that day. And while we were talking, God was like, Crystal, this is your husband. And I was like, but God, he's younger than me. And he was like, listen to everything that he's saying. Listen to the man that he is. This is everything that you've been saying you wanted in a husband. This is him. And I was like, oh my God, this is him. This is him. So when God was saying that, I didn't say anything. I was like, okay, let me just take this in. Let me just, because he could say it to me, but he got to say it to him too. So I was like, okay, God, okay. So that was that. I ended up inviting him over to a birthday party that I threw for a mutual friend. He came over, and long story short, 2 weeks later, he says, Crystal, you need to sit down because I need to tell you something. We were on the rooftop of my apartment because my apartment complex had a rooftop pool and a grill and all of that. And so we were just up there talking, and we had started spending some time together since that time we had that other conversation, just really casually hanging out, studying together. And we were up on the rooftop that night, and he was like, Crystal, I need to tell you something. You sit down. I need to tell you something. I was like, okay. And so I sit down, and he goes, Crystal, God told me you are going to be my wife. This is 2 weeks after we met. So literally like 4 weeks after I ended up in Atlanta. Like 3 weeks, because I got to Atlanta, I went out of town for the weekend, and then 2 weeks later. So this is literally 3 weeks after we met. I'm sitting on the rooftop, and he's like, Crystal, God said you're going to be my wife. And I was like, I already knew that. God told me that 2 weeks ago. catch up. No, I was just like, okay. I was like, yeah, I already knew that. Like, God already told me that. And he was like, what? Because he thought I was going to be like crying and all this stuff, but I'm not. Now he knows me better. He knows I'm not that super emotional type person. But it was just so cool because this is the other part of the story. So Ricky, that's my husband's name, had already been enrolled in a master's program in the city at another school, but they were going through some issues with their accreditation. And so he's like, you know what, I'm gonna leave before, you know, maybe they lose their accreditation or whatever. And he said God told him to apply to Mercer. So he actually applied and got accepted into Mercer like a week before I did. So he applied, got into Mercer because God told him to go there. A week later, I apply and get into Mercer because God told me to go there. And we both end up in orientation at the same time. And it's just so cool because what if I had been like, you know, I've been moving around so much, I don't want to move again. Because remember now, I'm staying at a friend's house in Maryland. I've only been there for like 3 months. And I went there because I felt like God told me to move there. Like, and I'm like, what's going on? And so, but I was like, you know what? God, you said go. So I'm going to pick up my stuff and I'm going to go. And what if he had been like, you know what? If it's not fully accredited, even then, I'm probably going to be able to get my degree before before they lose their accreditation. So I just stay where I am. Like, then we would not have even met. Like, so many things align. Even for me to be able to apply to get into the program after the deadline was cut off. Listen, like, God was making moves for your girl, okay? Like, all of that. Even, I would say, even for me, so this is another part. When I got back to Atlanta, where that guy was that I was in that entanglement with, you know he tried to hit your girl up because listen, let me tell you, your past is going to try to keep up when God is trying to take you somewhere else. And so he had hit me up and he was like, hey, you know, I just wanted to spend time with you. I missed you. And he's like literally saying all these things that back when I was in that entanglement situation, like anything that I would have wanted him to say, like he missed me, he want me, like all this stuff, he was saying like everything. And I literally was not moved at all by any of it. And because I was just over it. And I was just like, you know what? I don't know what you're looking for, but I know I'm not it. And I hope that you find it one day. And honestly, those are probably the most empowering words that I ever could have said to a guy, because I said it in a way that it was like, it doesn't devalue me if I'm not what you want. It's okay for me to not be what you want. It doesn't make me worth any less than who I am, what God created me to be. I'm not for you. And I'm okay with not being for you because I want to go be who I'm supposed to be for me and for somebody else. Like, and I'm okay with that. And so, yeah, like my past tried to creep up on me and I was like, nah, I'm straight. Like, I'm straight. And like I said, literally right after that, like I end up with Ricky. And I'm so happy that I obeyed God every step of the way, because it's sometimes hard to walk away from things you're familiar with, people you're familiar with, places you are familiar with, but God may be calling you to do all of those things and you don't even know that he's telling somebody else on the other side, like a Ricky, yeah, you need to switch schools, yeah, you need to do this, you need to go there, like moving him around strategically, just like he was moving me around strategically so that I could meet him, so that we could meet each other. And you guys, we have been married for over 6 years now. Yeah, we have been married for over 6 years now. We have 2 children, one 4-year-old daughter, her name is Rain, and a son who is 2 years old. He is a whirlwind, Ricky the third. And you guys, like, I'm so happy. And I feel like people always ask, how could you get married to somebody so quickly? And for us, it didn't feel quick. It didn't feel so quick. It didn't feel rushed at all. Like, we were at such peace. And that doesn't mean there wasn't a lot that happened, growth points in our relationship during our dating, during our engagement phase, because there definitely were. But we were always able to be at peace with the word that God gave us. And something that I always tell people is you have to ask yourself 2 questions. Is this the person, and is now the time? And if God says yes to both, then you know. And I was just so excited because I was ready. I was ready to be married more than I knew that I was ready to be married. Because like I said, I had got to a point, I had told my dad and everything, my mom, like, listen, that money y'all been saving up for a wedding, I changed my mind. I'm not getting married. I'm just going to throw a huge party when I turn 30. Like, how about that? Let's just use the money on that. Like, I was so committed to, I wasn't going to be getting married. I was truly doing good. Like, you know, Medea, I do bad all by myself. Like, I wasn't doing bad, but, you know, I was chilling. I was doing me. And then God brought this amazing man into my life like a whirlwind. Like, oh my gosh. Like, and so, yeah, that is basically how God led me to my husband. And we met, got engaged, dated, got married. I forget the dating period because it was so short. Literally, we met in August. The first time I saw him was right before August the 14th. So I want to say like August the 12th. And I know so well because it was my best friend's birthday and we were going out of town. So like August the 12th is when I saw him. And then we got engaged December the 8th. And then we got married June the 6th of the following year. So the dating period was like so short. It was like 3 months. And then, you know, it was 6 months to get from December to the wedding on June the 6th. And it was actually going to be in May, but just through, you know, scheduling and all that, who we wanted to invite to the wedding, we had to end up moving it to June, or this would have been a video on how I got married, engaged, met my husband, all that in 8 months. It was almost that. But yeah, so I just think there's so much beauty in trusting God with your journey, with all facets of your journey. I have a video on my celibacy journey, how I went through that, how it's led me, also played a part in leading me to my husband, Ricky. I have a video on things that I did, because listen, God's gonna do some things, and then he gonna have you to do some things, and them things might be things that you're not used to doing, but I spilled the tea on all those things in the How I Really Got My Husband video. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you check out my celibacy video. And more importantly, make sure that you trust God with your journey. I know everybody doesn't want to be married, but if you do want to be married, if you are looking to be married, don't give up, you guys. I'm going to be giving you more content on, again, dating, getting married, all that kind of stuff, my singleness journey, my all that. I'm gonna be spilling tea because I feel like sometimes we like to play a role proper, if you will, as Christians, and not share all the many facets to the journeys that we go on sometimes. And I want to share the many facets to my journey just to keep giving you guys hope for your journey and finding the man that God has for you, and allowing the man that God has for you to find you, and you find him and he finds you, and all that other type of stuff. But definitely be listening to the small whisper, the small voice of God as he speaks to you in your life. And so yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little story time about me getting married, meeting my husband, all that type of stuff. Let me know if you have any questions, anything that I left out in the comments. I'll definitely spill the tea for y'all all down through the comments too. And until next time, don't forget to subscribe.